guys, I'm Leandra Mira.
And I'm Natalie Bensavanga, and this is Heating Up. This is the show that explores the intersection between the foods that we love to make and the conversations that we need to be having around social justice and climate change.
So sit back and relax while we make comfort foods that are good for you and good for the planet. So today I'm going to be showing you guys a lemongrass curry ramen recipe.
Yum.
I'm actually going to be honest. I've never made lemongrass curry before. I make curries.
So you thought the best time to debut something would be on Heating Up?
Yeah, because if it
I
fails,
like it.
If it fails, we're filmed, so we pretend that we're going to like it.
I like it. It's good.
No, so we can, so I'm just going to go through the steps. Most of it I've done before. The only thing different is the lemongrass
It's going to be
paste.
so delicious.
So we're going to take the tofu, we're going to chop it up, we're going to toss it in cornstarch, salt, and black pepper. And thank you, Natalie.
Yes.
We're going to have to start chopping up
I'm
the
the
onions.
sous chef today. That's right.
The onions go first into the pot with olive oil, all of the spices, the lemongrass paste, and ginger, and some
I love ginger.
chilies. Me
So
too.
good for the tummy, too.
And some chilies. And then we are also going to start shelling the edamame. I can actually, oh, you chop that onion really fast.
Well, this isn't my first rodeo there, baby.
So I don't know, you probably use tofu more than I do.
Yeah.
Would you say that we should put the tofu in, we should fry it up at the end, or we should just do it now and get it over with?
So what I love about Super Firm is you don't really need to press out too much water either because this is vacuum sealed. So this will cube really well. So I say let's toss it in your cornstarch with some salt and pepper, put some olive oil in a pan, and we can cook that up right away.
Okay.
And then that way it's ready to roll when we put it in, but don't put it in the curry until the end,
Okay.
so it doesn't get too soppy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's the other thing. We're going to then put in the coconut milk and probably some water just to make it a little bit more ramen consistency.
Yeah.
We're going to put in the ramen, we're going to put in the broccolini, and then at the very end we're going to put in tomato because I don't like when my tomatoes mushy in my curry. And then we're going to put in some edamame as well, just to boil, and it's pretty simple. As you've noticed, most of our recipes have been soup-like recipes where you boil them
One
and let
pot.
them sit. Yeah, this one is the first one where we have another pan, and that's just because of the tofu. And a lot of times, I mean, at home I never do it on the stove. I do it in the oven.
I love
and
that.
bake it for 10 minutes. It's super easy, but
And if you bake the tofu, you can still coat it in cornstarch,
That's
salt and
what I
pepper,
do.
put it on parchment paper, and then you don't even need the oil.
yeah, that's what I do at home. And I also freeze it the night before because it makes
That's
it really crunchy.
That's a pro move.
Yeah, it makes it really crunchy.
She's pretending like she doesn't know things, but she knows all kinds of things.
I dabble.
Oh, you dabble well. I'm
Okay,
so
so-
excited. The smells of all of this.
Yeah.
Like, I love the way garam masala smells. It's like you know you're getting something comforting, but also with like a little kick, you know? And I'm really excited for this entire little spice rack you got going there. I can't wait.
Me too, honestly. I'm really excited to try it. I mean, I've had this dish before multiple times. I've just never made it. I think it's going to be
I just
great.
like the confidence, you know?
I mean,
I love it.
You
I'm
know,
just like, you know, we've never done it, guys, and we thought, let's do it now
what
with
better
all of
way, This is the test kitchen
you.
episode.
Amen. I love that. Let's do it.
What better way than to show everyone that we're Bon Appetit material?
All right, well then I guess we should just get chopping and then we'll meet everybody over at the stove. Okay, I wish we had the smell-o-vision yet again because this is awesome. I'm getting the aroma. These flavors are just coming at me. I'm so excited to try this.
It smells really good. It looks really good.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to add, we have to have a drinking game for this show where everybody drinks a sip of, for me, water, of course, but every time you say smell-o-vision.
I'd be drunk halfway through.
Yeah.
That makes the show even more fun.
The heating up rewatch. But
Exactly.
anyways, let's try this. We have
Okay.
a fork for the actual ramen, and then there's also like a soup, so you can have
Do you want to add any more garnish?
Oh, right. You're so smart.
I
okay,
mean-
wait. So yeah, so we have the chili, we have ginger. Do you garnish with ginger for dishes?
Why not?
Yeah?
Why not? Look, a little pinch.
Exactly.
How about that?
For
And then we
good
can
health.
stir it in. Yeah, because we put already some in the pot too, which is great. And then I love green onions, so I'm gonna load mine.
Yeah,
up with
you
green
just
onion.
you did
Oh,
that,
I'm a green onion
so
gal.
chill out.
And then those red chilies have a kick, so if you
Yeah,
like a
try not
little
to get the
spice, you
seeds.
know, feel free to. I'm just gonna do a few because I'm a big baby, but I do think it looks so pretty for color.
This tofu looks
Hello.
really good. Natalie did the tofu, which is why it looks so good.
Oh, stop! You're so sweet. I can't wait to try
Wow.
this. Oh my god.
Is it good?
No, it's amazing. This is our first recipe that we've not had either of us yet.
That's really good.
Guys,
It's
You
not
should
that
be really
spicy.
jelly right now of us.
It's not that spicy.
It's got like a subtle heat.
I'm glad I didn't put in too much chili like at the beginning because I didn't want to make it where it was like cooked into the broth and people who
That
don't like
broth
spice
is like sweet and savory at the exact same time.
I don't know what made it sweet. Maybe the tomatoes or the onions.
I think it's the coconut milk and a little bit of the ginger. Oh my gosh. This is amazing.
guys.
Thank you so much for sharing this dish. I can't wait to share it with our guest. They're going to be blown away, so you'll have to stay tuned. Hey everyone, we are so honored and thrilled today to have a very special guest from Pitt. Her name is Dr. Maureen Lichtveld, and she is the Dean of Public Health. This is the moment where I wish we had that applause track because we are just so thrilled to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm so excited to be here, Natalie. And who can't be jealous of starting a meal on a Sunday morning with tofu and curry and lemongrass? Fantastic.
I wish that they could smell through the camera because it smells really good. Not to pat myself on the back.
Well, you should. This is an amazing dish. So before we dig in, though, we would love to hear a little bit about your journey, how you ended up as the dean, because you have just such a fascinating story.
Well, that journey actually starts at age 23 when I became the youngest physician and the first female physician to work in the Amazon rainforest of Suriname. And Suriname is in South America, but it was a former Dutch colony. So if you're wondering about my accent, it's Dutch. But what happened when I was working as a physician is that I saw repeated environmental related diseases. And I could continue to treat them, but I thought I had an aha moment. And that aha moment was using the medical model and treating one person at a time would not get to good health, would not get to sustainable health. And so my first aha was that the health of the people was inextricably linked to the health of the environment. And so with that aha came no longer only looking at medicine as the way to make people healthy, but actually looking at public health and devoting my life to community health. And so that's how my journey started. And that brought me into public health, brought me into the US, specialized in environmental health, of all the areas in public health I could choose. And I did that because there's always a question that we hadn't answered yet. And then I spent 18 years at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention as a disease detective.
I love that. So you're at the CDC studying, like, sleuthing out about disease here.
Correct. And then I spent 15 years working in the Gulf of Mexico at Tulane University as the chair of the Department of Environmental Health Sciences. But I knew there was this bigger calling, and this bigger calling was Pittsburgh.
I love that.
I feel the same way. I feel the same way. That's why I'm here.
We have consensus.
So why Pittsburgh?
Because we have a high-ranking, a top-ranking School of Public Health that is ready to go to that next step. And that next step is about assuring our environment and addressing climate and health. All the things we're already doing in research, in teaching, and in practice, not addressing climate as the greatest public health threat is not doing our job as public health professionals.
You know, we actually had a doctor on the show, shout out to Natalie Gentili, and she actually does all of our nutritional guidelines for the meals. And I remember one of the things that she was saying was that it's so frustrating that the medical model doesn't focus on prevention and taking care of people. And it's so crazy listening to you talking about the fact that you were 23 and you were it was before our time. Now it's sort of way more mainstream to have conversations about public health being centered around, okay, if there's an industrial plant polluting, of course the kids are going to have asthma, and that's going to be something that's causing so many issues. But you were already
trailblazing.
Yeah, trailblazing. The exact word.
There were so many questions to be answered. You could potentially make the link, but you need to have data to show that.
Studies, statistics.
Correct. And so now, one of the things that we've heard very often is that, we don't know enough to determine whether climate impacts our health. I'm here to tell you that I no longer have to be a disease detective, nor do I have to be a climate detective, because we have the information. We know what increasing heat, more drought, more flooding, more air pollution does to our health, and particularly to what we put in our mouth, actually, our food.
When did you come to this moment where you were like, this is what I want to focus on, is climate change and combating climate change, and also doing my work centered around climate?
So when we look at what impacts the health of not only one of us, but the health of our whole community, there isn't a greater threat than the increasing impact of climate on our health.
That's not scary.
No, it's not scary because the decision is in our hands, actually. We are making those choices. We are making the choices of how we're polluting the air. We're making the choices of what we put in our mouth. We're making the choices about how much water we use. We're making the choices of whether we walk or drive. So those are all choices that we make. And behavioral change is tough to come by in any human being, right? But there couldn't be a greater motivation to do that, because what we do now will impact our kids, our grandkids, and generations to come. So we're not making an individual decision. We're making a community-based decision that will impact all of us. Now, who would not want to do something about that responsibility?
So, to your point, when we're talking about the individual, you might be able to get people on board to do that. And I know people make up governments, they make up corporations, but how do you convince these larger entities that are responsible for a lot of the climate change problems that we're experiencing? How do you get those entities on board from your position?
In a number of ways. And so often people forget that science, policy, and practice are actually a triangle that relate to each other. So science provides the data to make evidence-based policies, health-related policies. And so it's not a policy on the back of this beautiful napkin that we have here, but it's really a policy based on data. Once we do that, then we can inform what we're doing on the front line in terms of frontline practice.
Okay. So you sit on a lot of boards and spaces, not just in the United States, but globally. Can you talk a little bit about how that sort of creates these ripples across the world and how we as a globe are trying to combat climate change?
There are a few organizations that I would mention. Beginning with the National Academy of Medicine. I am so proud of our organization. As you know, the National Academy of Medicine is the most prominent organization of all of us in science, of all of us scholars. So I'm a very proud member of the National Academy of Medicine. And we now, for the second year in a row, have identified climate and health as our singular priority, in addition to addressing the pandemic. Secondly, I'm also on the board of the Consortium for University of Global Health, where we bring 130,000 health professionals together to address issues such as climate change. And the last organization I would mention is a small one, but that will have a big footprint, and that's called Earthmedic. It's in Trinidad and Tobago. I am from the Caribbean. And what we're focusing on is people like you, emerging public health professionals that we want to train and make sure they are part of this frontline workforce that will help us make change. Because you're
like a call to action.
Clearly you have a different color in your hair than I do, which means that you have longevity to make change. So I'm putting all my hope in you, the emerging
No pressure,
public health
Leandra.
Wow.
So talking about that longevity and getting back to Pitt, can you talk a little about these emerging programs that you are
And
helping to
University of
lead.
Pitt, for people who aren't from Pittsburgh.
Yes.
University of Pittsburgh. We keep saying Pitt, like
Yeah, we're just so local.
Yeah.
The University of Pittsburgh is rich in all the components that will help us address climate and health. And so we have schools of...
That's good to hear.
Yes, we have schools of education and schools of engineering, particularly, that we're going to work together with Public Health, the School of Public Health at the University of Pittsburgh. Now, what are we doing? We're beginning early by creating this fall a Bachelor's of Science in Public Health that will have
I'm not
special
making eye contact with
attention.
Natalie because
I told her when I first met this wonderful woman, I said, Leandra, this could be a life path for you. I think you two should connect. So yeah, I'm over here like, yeah.
So after the show, we will have a conversation.
Your mother will be happy.
That Bachelor's of Science in Public Health is going to stream naturally in our School of Public Health, where master's and doctoral programs are. But the most exciting area is, we have been on the forefront of addressing this pandemic.
Yes.
Of looking at, we're doing a lot in vaccine research. We're doing a lot in looking at the virus itself. And so infectious disease is a strong component for us. But what we're doing, building on that foundation, is to have a full area in our school focused on climate and health and One Health. Wow. So students like Leandra and those who come into the master's and PhD student will become our frontline soldiers.
most of the kids my age are already like, any career I'm going into, I'm finding a way to focus on climate. Like,
Yes.
so it's so interesting, but it's also so relieving to hear that Pitt is like attaching these different degrees and different paths together to climate, because you can do anything and still find a way to be
Absolutely.
addressing climate change.
Social work, anthropology, computing sciences, or schools in the health sciences, medicine and nursing and pharmacy, all of those schools together. So the second message is that it will take a team. Just like we say it will take a village,
Right.
it will take a team. So none of us individually can address
Right.
the threat. So it will take a team, a multidisciplinary, in a way we say a transdisciplinary team of all scientists, creating this future workforce that will then help us do the kinds of things that we help our communities to do. So it's not, it's not fair, and it's absolutely unethical, that's where I was going, to blame any individual or to blame a community.
Right.
It is our common responsibility to take action.
And it also doesn't get us anywhere to pick fights and say, well, you guys did this and we did this. It's like, well, what can we do right now? Like, we don't have the time to be blaming one another.
So when we're looking at the solutions and the things that people and communities can do, what are some things that you recommend we start with?
One of the first things is to look at what we eat. And consider and look at what we're eating. Consider agriculture not as a economic development, but really as a food system.
Yeah.
And if we look at what we eat, plant-based food, animal-based food, processed food, we have enough information to show that plant-based food is better for your health. And it decreases what we call the environmental footprint of pollution, meaning it increases sustainability.
Right.
Animal-based food and processed food do the opposite.
Okay.
And
See,
so
it's not just us saying this now. We have a real
No,
professional. Take her word for it.
So people always say, well, it's really difficult to do. I could tell you that I can do things with tofu in any which way that you could do things with meat.
So could Natalie. She can do lots of things to tofu.
So, like here in this dish.
Yeah.
It is not more expensive.
Right.
It is for us to make choices and make those decisions when we shop, when we grow. areas. And I'd like to mention something. So when we, and we're actually, especially, how do you say that? Spoiled, actually, particularly in the US.
Yeah.
We want that fruit, that vegetable to look perfect. The apple to not have any little, pinch things on there, any impurity, and we won't buy it. Actually, having impurities, not having the orange look totally yellow, is a clear indication that no pesticides were used.
Yeah, like I run a community garden in Shadeland in the north side, and the kids, like, sometimes, because we grow with no pesticides, there will be bites from bugs on some things, unfortunately.
Course. Yeah.
And sometimes with the strawberries, because that's what the kids love the most, the strawberries, they'll like flip it over and they'll be like, oh, it has a bite. Like, and it's a perfect strawberry, it just has like a little dent in it. And sometimes I'll literally have to get out like a knife and cut it out for them because they're like 2 or 3, and I'm like, I mean, I used to be like that as well, so I can't judge. But it's the healthiest food is the ones that,
So here is the
perfect
road.
looking.
Let me give you an example.
Okay.
Okay.
If we have
Let's
drought, so not enough precipitation,
Mm-hmm.
then the soil is too dry. Yes?
Yeah.
And it takes us longer and more effort to grow enough and to grow healthy. So what is it that most people do then? We use pesticides.
Yeah.
So that we want to ensure that the food that's coming out looks healthier so we can sell it. And so by doing that, one, it's actually not healthier. 2, you're actually contaminating the soil
Yeah.
for the next crop
Yeah, for the next year.
to be planted. And when you contaminate the soil, it goes to what's called the groundwater, into the groundwater, and it streams into our rivers, contaminating the river, contaminating the fish and the things we eat in the river. So one action, drought, how climate impacts drought, has a ripple effect so far.
I love how you so clearly connect these dots too, because I think sometimes it's very easy to become disjointed about things and think, well, I'm eating this pretty apple. Apples are good for me. That's what I should be doing, but not thinking it through that whole system of connection. Does it ever overwhelm you when you think about these things? Or how do you, from a public health perspective, knowing the amount of knowledge that you know, how do you sort of keep it moving in a positive forward momentum kind of way?
So I fully realize that if you don't live in my world of public health, but soon maybe somebody else will live in my world of public health.
So much.
Oh my gosh.
It can be overwhelming.
Yes.
But it is our job as public health professionals to break it down in little pieces. And that's what I'm trying to do today in our conversation. So break it down in little pieces so that when you make a decision to buy this apple or this strawberry versus another one, you think about that.
Yeah. Can you talk about the 3 Ps?
Yes.
Okay, we discussed this earlier, but I'd like for everyone to learn. I feel like we're all in a lecture right now in the best possible way, and I need to be taking notes.
So
you
could say the 3 Ps are Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and Pennsylvania, because that's our home, right?
Yeah.
But the 3 Ps here are prevention, prediction, and preparedness. So prevention is before anything happens, you make sure that doesn't happen. That bad thing, that drought, that air pollution, that flooding doesn't happen. That's prevention. And you probably will segment this out, but so I always share with my students that prevention is very unlike ejaculation. There is no instant gratification there. So you could edit that out.
No, I can't, because that's amazing, and I did not expect that, and that has to stay in now.
That was the last thing I was expecting.
So because it takes
It's a great analogy.
But I love it for college kids. I mean, that's the best way to get them to understand.
Yeah, the students wake up then.
They're like, what? Wait, okay, I'm here.
The point here is that it takes a long time for prevention to pay off. And therefore, it's not enticing for many policymakers to invest in prevention. If you look at our national budget.
Investment. That's what it sounds like is an investment.
So the investment in prevention gives the greatest return on investment. But yet it's difficult to entice policymakers to invest in it, because people are not willing to wait. And so that's what public health is about.
Yeah.
So the second P, prediction. So we use data, we use science to help us model what will next happen, where the next pandemic will be, what we need to do to get ready for the next pandemic, or what we need to do to prevent the impact of climate on health. So it is data driven. It is not my opinion. And the third P, the last P, is the most important one. That's preparedness. So how do we get ourselves ready to make sure we save our environment and save our health?
Wow. And so with the work that you're doing and the preparedness that you're doing, and then hopefully Leandra will be picking up that torch in the future, just
Absolutely.
planting a seed.
I need a paper bag.
As we wrap this up, what are some things that you would like people to understand as takeaways in this moment? In this very teachable moment, because I feel like I have learned a lot.
Right, I'm enrolling at Pitt right
Yes,
now.
exactly.
I'm literally going.
Climate change is not something that just happened. It's something that finally has gotten the attention because of the urgency. So we have an urgent public health threat. Secondly, anybody, any of you can do something about it.
Yeah.
Beginning in your own kitchen, but also thinking about how would I protect my child, my grandchild, the next generations. That's our responsibility. So to ensure that our health and our kids' health is the best it can be, we must ensure that our environment is the healthiest it can be.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lichtveld, for spending this time with us. This was truly an honor to get to hear you speak.
No, this
and
was beautiful.
Yeah, and
I
just
want to
learn
have
more.
a high five. That's how I'm feeling right now.
So we just thank you, and now we get to finally enjoy to get to eat more plants
Yeah,
together.
Who does an interview and gets food at the end?
I know, like this is the best trade-off
Yes.
ever.
So thank you so much.
Thank
Bye,
you so
everybody.
much.
Thank you.